So it looks like it's 10:40, and I think we should get started, just because it's a quick 35 minutes, I know. It goes really fast, it goes by fast when you have a lot of information. So you came to the session because social media is here, and faculty want to use it. How many of you are faculty in here? Okay. How many are like instructional designers or IT? How many are admins? Okay. So a good mix of here, and we're going to talk about a couple key things, and really as we go through this, you'll get a feel of where we started, how it kind of started to form, and then what we're doing now about training faculty on social media and getting them involved. So I'm Josh Murdoch, at Professor Josh, so I tweet a lot. So at Professor Josh.
And I'm Lisa Macon. And when we submitted this presentation, I was an IT faculty member at Valencia. And since then, I have been somewhat against my will given a temporary administrative position, which I kind of like. But Josh is an instructional designer at Valencia, so he helps faculty get started with whatever they want to do, social media related and otherwise. I was one of the early adopters of social media, floundering out there when all the other faculty were making fun of me, and now they come and they want to know more about it.
And I'm an adjunct faculty also, so I teach educational technologies, so those in the K through 12, and also going into K through 12 teaching, and also student success. So I had to add zombies to the presentation. What good presentation doesn't have zombies in it? And really, what I wanted to get with this is that, at first, Facebook, and that was like, it's just eating away the brains of our youth, right? People are just going on Facebook. But now it's mainstream. Everything has some kind of social media component. Every company, every job, everything you can think about. So really, this is where we are at now. And these are just some of the questions that you can think of as faculty probably, is how do I engage my student? These are general questions you think all the time. How do I communicate with students? How do I utilize new tools? And how do students, do students need the digital literacy? And that's a big question. And social media has really come up to be one of those questions that you're thinking about when you're thinking about digital literacy and training students to be prepared for jobs later, for life later, right? All those kind of things come into factor. So can social media help with some of these? What do you think? Think social media can probably help with some of these? So I designed this to kind of explain social media. And this is kind of just for a laugh here. But this is using different social media. So Facebook, explained by cupcakes, is I like cupcakes. I'm a big cupcake fan. So I'm blogging about cupcakes with WordPress. Google Plus is the best one. I'm a Google employee who eats cupcakes because it's a joke that no one's on Google Plus. So we'll talk about some of those things as we go through the presentation. So the Wild West. So what do I mean by the Wild West? So before any kind of real policy guidance, things happen, innovation does happen, but it's the Wild West, right? With technology. Once someone gets a hold of technology, gets a hold of what's new, what's going on, it's free reign for what they do because no one's established any kind of guidelines, no one's given best practices, no one's given kind of any of these things. Innovation's happening, but is other faculty knowing about this and knowing what's happening and getting advice on what to do? A lot of people are scared by it too at the beginning. So 2 years ago, you'd probably say, if you went to an administrator and said, can I have Facebook? Can I use it in my course? You'd probably be scared, right? They'd probably say, no, we can't do that. We're worried about policy, FERPA, everything in general. So these are some of the things that started to build. It started to happen, and this is kind of how I developed the course, really, is because I saw a need for these things. So a little bit about the timeline. So education starts to warm up to social media. So a couple years ago, I would say education just really starts to warm up to social media. It wasn't prevalent. Some of the outside users, innovators were using social media, so it just started to kind of build. And then presentations happened. I did a lot of presentations the last couple years at different conferences. Like at Sloan C I did one, done one at NYSA, did one at STEM Tech, things like that, and within faculty too. I've done one at internal conferences, but you see other people start doing them. Now at this conference, how many are on social media in some kind of use, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, whether it be using them for chats or study groups or tutoring or all those different things. It's building, it's growing, and educators are realizing how much social media has exploded, become mainstream. So now we look at the final part of the timeline is we started looking at course development and faculty demand. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so the same faculty who 5 years ago were saying there's no way you'll ever see me on Facebook are now saying, I really need to use it. Can you help me figure out how this fits into my learning outcomes for my course and just into the content of my course itself?
So the questions started to come up, how can I use this? What can I use it for? People are talking about it. It's a buzzword, right? Social media. MOOCs is a buzzword for this one. Social media is a buzzword. Things like that are all coming up and being talked about. But you have to think about, now people are experimenting, and that's kind of the beginning, right? People experiment. So that's how I got started with it. I started to experiment with it. First came my blog. My blog was the way I started. I taught an ed tech course. For those that are going through K through 12 to be educators in K through 12 system, I taught it primarily online. And the one thing with teaching it online is the students loved all the tricks and tips and different things I gave them. But once they left the course, they didn't get those anymore. So they were like, I want more info. I want to keep up to date. I'm going into the field, and I still want to know, what are some new things out there? What's going on? Are things coming about? So it was a way for me to connect with my students after they left and kind of also share what I learned with other educators. So it wasn't just for those in my course, it was also other educators that are interested in technology, apps, what's going on. So then I decided, okay, now it's time to open a Facebook page. Facebook page was a way to also kind of communicate with students. It was before Facebook groups became as nice as they are now. They have a lot of new features, a lot of great things about them. That's probably the ideal environment, but I was kind of a broader brand. I was looking not just for the students that I served, but also others. And then I really started to play with Twitter and figure out how that could work into a course environment, also how it could work just with networking, learning, things like that. So all these kind of experimentations with my side, and other people started experimenting.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of different uses popping up with Twitter. I know personally how I've used it is have a separate account for each class, or maybe for multiple sections of the same class. And then I've taught computer programming for many, many years. So not only reminding students about deadlines and assignments and things like that, but also little tech tidbits, maybe retweeting links to stuff they might be interested in learning more about. We're going to see some examples of work that other faculty at Valencia are doing with integrating social media into their classes.
So it's science in progress, experimentation in progress, but no kind of really guidelines, policies, nothing to follow, because a lot of people haven't used it or haven't come up in those conversations yet. So research has been developed, and it's a lot easier than 2 years ago to find research on social media. So I have a presentation will be available afterwards, also on my site. But this will link you to my Delicious account, which has a ton of different resources that I've started to find and started to accumulate over the years. But people are doing research in this. You're finding what's going on, what is actually out there. Here's actually some research by one of our professors at Valencia for her tenure track, Amanda Kern.
And I was on her tenure committee, so I had the actually very lucky experience of seeing her research in motion. But we have a very, very deep and integrated tenure process at Valencia, which you may or may not be aware of. But faculty basically have to do a thesis-type project in order to earn tenure at Valencia College. Takes 3 years at this time, and her work was all centered around integrating social media into classes and doing research. She surveyed faculty, students, and industry members. Amanda teaches graphics technology, and a lot of her classes are focused on using graphic technology and digital media for marketing purposes, as that's the career that many of her students will go into. So this was it made sense for her to look at social media. She's also very passionate about it as well. But her findings were that half of the faculty that responded to her survey are using social media in some way. And that could be Facebook. A lot of them are using blogs to engage students and share with students and have students share with the other students for student-student interaction. And then 87% of the industry partners that she surveyed admitted that they researched their candidates online and looked for social media, let's say, tidbits about candidates before hiring them. So that was very eye-opening for her, and we've been sharing that data around the college, and she'll be starting her speaker circuit as soon as we hopefully award her tenure next spring.
And I think if you look at that too, we've actually just started a new course at Valencia called Social Networking for Job Search. It's a 1-credit course in the CPS or computer area. But that's how important it's becoming, that social media is somehow integrated, because it's becoming part of their life. They need to learn about it, learn how to use it right, learn what it's for, and learn how to communicate through it in positive ways. So, like I said, tons of presentations. That kind of just started, that I went around and did the circuit with. Lisa's done a few of them with me. I've done a couple different ones.
Yeah, I've done some myself. If the planets align, we can be in the same room with them.
So we try to do them together, but other places I've done them at. But this is where it starts to formulate these ideas, and then you bring them back to your school and say, wow, I can use this. I can try something. Or do it around the college, and someone says, wow, I want to try that now. So that's the kind of idea of bringing that innovation. Is you have to bring an idea, then innovation really starts forming. You start getting all these ideas in your head that you can actually develop something out of them. So that's where the idea of teaching and learning social media part 1.
So this was just one of those interesting things that happens in education, where you've got the academic side of the house, which is where our faculty development office is located. And I'm one of the facilitators and content developers. I have another one here in the room with us, Lisa. Anyway, we were brainstorming in some of our think tank meetings about upcoming development for faculty development courses. There is a part of Valencia's compensation package that includes faculty development. So our faculty are constantly utilizing our faculty development courses, and they're always demanding more, newer, faster, better courses, which is a great problem to have. Obviously, social media was on our radar. This was 2 years ago when we were first discussing it. And of course, we were thinking about it from the pedagogical aspect of how would you use social media to teach in your class? What could you add to your class that would target the learning outcomes? At the same time, on the other side, the technology side of the house,
we started talking about the same thing too. So I've been presenting on it for a while. I said it's needed to be out there. I know faculty are using it. I've talked to several faculty. They ask me about it. They want to use it, or they're not sure, or some faculty are just afraid of it, but they're curious still too. So that's a good aspect. So when it was finally we both submitted, I think, the idea to create this course at the same time, because we teach courses on the technology side for faculty development too. So we teach a lot of the Blackboard courses, multimedia tools, all kinds of different other things that add into the faculty development realm. So we kind of both came up with the same idea at the same time. So it was like, of course, we need to create something. And it's trying to figure out how we create it. And the local faculty expert was me in social media. I was kind of the person that people looked to for social media and wanted to get involved with it. But also, the important part of it is we need non-experts to look at the course too as we develop it. And I think that's important because you might know everything about social media, developing something, or know a lot about it, but you have to have the non-experts kind of look at it and kind of give you that balance of points too. Say, well, I don't know about that. Tell me why, or tell me, what I need to include in it. I think that was really important because the person that co-facilitated and built this course with me was a person that really kind of shied away from social media. He used a little bit in personal life, but he didn't really use it at all in the aspect of teaching and learning, or shared it with other people really in his area, even professionally for work.
Yeah, and having that skeptic at the table really made a difference in targeting the questions that participants would have. that we would need to be prepared to answer perhaps before they even asked them, and it made it a much better course.
So the development of a timeline for this course was pretty fast. It went by pretty fast because it was kind of approved over summer. It's going to start teaching it in September for a short course. So figure out how you're going to teach it, how long, you know, we kind of figured ideas about it first, but now we had to actually develop it. And it's important because our review process goes through several different channels. So it's kind of developers bring it together, then we kind of have a midterm meeting with the faculty development director, and then we also wanted to bring in an important factor I'll talk about later, but bring in your legal counsel on this. First, they love it, being involved in it, and he really loved the idea of this course being created. Because when I start talking about policies and guidelines, you'll see that it's really a part that, you know, they kind of shy away from, but they love the idea of someone's putting best practices, guidelines, and things out there, and they kind of said, here's what needs to be included too, or here's what, you know, you don't really have to worry about, and give us some ideas. So it was finally approved, went forward, and we determined it would be 6 PD hours, totally online. So it's a totally online course. It's about 2 weeks, a little extended now. We ran it for 2 times last year, so we had a core group of 20 faculty. Every time it was full, about 2 months beforehand, people were asking it in. We said, no, we're going to keep it at 20 and cap it and go through. We decided to extend it a little because people kind of complained some parts felt rushed. And we didn't want it, they didn't want us to take out the content, but they just felt rushed in getting through their process. With our faculty development courses online too, a lot of people take multiple at the same time. I developed 4 modules really with SoftChalk. So I used SoftChalk to develop these modules as they went through. What social media is all about, Social Media Tools 101, the legal and ethical best practices, and integration of social media. I'll talk about each 4 of these. And this was part of our digital professor certification. So we have a certification, we have certain core classes, and this was one of the electives actually that's on the pedagogy side.
Yeah, and that, I believe that will link to Valencia's
Yes.
Digital Professor Certification Program, which is somewhat, unfortunately, in my opinion, internal just to Valencia faculty. However, I've worked with faculty from other colleges and universities to model something that fit their program a little bit more personally, but using our Digital Professor program as a guideline.
So the first one is what social media is all about, and this really took a look at, you know, it's not just a fad, it's a revolution. So we kind of play that video. We go through the millennials and how do we engage people, and really this was just an introduction section. What's social media overall? This broad picture of social media, and then why is it important for engaging students? And so it's just kind of a broad concept, and then we place discussions at the end. And this one really introducing why they're taking this class, about themselves, what they use personally, professionally, or in the classroom for social media. And then also, this was great because we got an idea on who was like already using it. And there was a lot of people already using it, we found out through this, some way, some bit, some little tiny bit maybe, or a bigger picture that were taking this class. Or some people were scared of it. Actually said, I use Facebook for my personal, to share my grandkids or something like that, and that's it. But it was interesting, they were taking this class because they wanted to open their eyes and see what was available and what was different, or what was going on. What's this buzzword going around? Why are people wanting to use it to engage people? So that was a really important part of kind of asking those other questions. We also had the option where they could share their social media connections with people during that discussion too if they wanted to. It was just an option. So next is Social Media Tools 101. And I love this wet paint. I put that there because it's always changing, right? Social media tools. It's important to kind of make it a broad overview. This course wasn't built to teach people how to use the tools. This course was built to give them a picture of what tools are out there, what things are available, and then go into kind of the pedagogy behind it and how you can engage and coming up with a plan. The plan will probably include you learning about these tools further if you don't know about them. And that was important, is to discuss, get some ideas, get some summaries of different things. So these are some of the ones that we covered. I just actually started teaching it Wednesday again online. So we just started Wednesday online, and I added Pinterest this year. I didn't add it last year towards the summer because it wasn't open and available to everyone. It was by invite only and things like that. Now it's open and I hear people are using it, so I decided to add that into the course. So those are some of the ones we talk about. They're kind of the key players, or some are related to other ones. You know, some might be in that same genre, like WordPress is a blogging tool. I didn't want to talk about all the blogging tools. I wanted to kind of keep it central. So it's too much. It's a 6-hour course kind of thing online over a little over 2 weeks. Summaries, examples, guides, video presentations. They really liked SoftChalk because it walked them through very cleanly the presentation of everything, but you can add a lot of multimedia and links to things, but don't overwhelm them too.
And of course what happened is now they're demanding courses on how to use all of these tools, which is great.
So the next section was the legal and ethical best practices section. We wanted to really stay away from just talking about policy, but talk about the potential for it, but digital perils, FERPA, privacy, ethical, policy, all those. Now it's interesting, Valencia does not have a policy on social media. Yet. And it came up actually in the conversation with legal counsel, and he's like, I'm not the one that wants to initiate that. It's like, we have policies that cover it, that cover a lot of the stuff with it. If you look at your student code of conduct, you look at your digital use, the communication policies, all those kind of different things already cover a lot of that genre. But there's other things that probably come up, but it's a good idea to have their advice and word. You know, have that kind of the word from them that this looks good, this is what needs to be in there. And then we had a kind of a dual discussion on this one. We'll talk about best practices. So we say, okay, now you've learned about these. They go through a link on best practices, on policies and that. What do you think are some best practices you should think about when thinking about using social media? And then also we talk about syllabus. What needs to be in your syllabus up front? You know, that's the key thing is with using social media, we think about, okay, what do students need to know up front? Do they need to know that it's optional, required? What kind of course is it? Does it actually, you know, if you teach a journalism course, you can easily require Twitter. And that's part of the course because it's an essential component probably to getting a job as a journalist later on to know something about Twitter and be able to use it and those type of things. But for a Comp 1 class, is it an essential component of that class? Is it necessary to have that? Or is it just an additive? And so we kind of talk about some of those things about what you need to put in your syllabus and things like that. So this one was interesting because my counterpart, Charles, really developed this. I let him kind of go with it because the outsider look. He was the kind of against, but then we kind of met in the middle, you know, where things should be. And we look at policy and then having that, your legal counsel involved in it too. So the last part is the integration of social media. So this is the last part of the course. This is where they actually have to develop a product. And that's an important part we try to integrate into a lot of our courses, that you come away with a product afterwards, something you can implement or use. So this one talks about, we develop a plan, we showcase examples. I use a lot of case study books. If you look on Amazon, search like social media and education case study books, there's a lot out there. They're pretty expensive though, they're like textbooks. Really, they're like $80 textbooks and that. I got a couple of them to get some ideas from. You can find a lot more on the web. But at the time when I started building this class, there was some things out there, but not as many. Like here's real world examples, here's their stats kind of behind it, the case studies behind it. So really have that for them. They want that. They want to see how people are using it and get some ideas on what they need to include or what worked and not work. So hopefully as we build this course, people will start becoming building these integration planning maps. So this will link you to the planning map that I developed, and it really is the idea of that here's what you kind of need to think about when you're building these. You know, how you're going to use it. And we said integration planning map because it might not be an assignment. It could be just a communication plan. How do you plan on engaging with your students? I'm not saying you have to build an assignment revolving social media, but how are you going to integrate it? So start thinking about that and then get feedback from your colleagues. That was an important part of the kind of final thing.
we use planning maps in many of our faculty development courses for things like planning how you're going to communicate with your students when you're in an online course, planning how you're going to facilitate discussions in an online course, and the purpose of them, this one's really neat, but just the idea of planning maps that they make faculty think of the questions that will have them set up a course successfully and not have those jarring moments where, oh gosh, I didn't think about this happening. So it just helps them plan.
So hopefully after we get some of these plans and that, I'd like to include more examples personally at the college, what's going on with it too. You know, get permission by those people to use it inside the course, or use how did it work out after you tried this in your course, or did you go beyond what you thought you wanted to do? So kind of integrate those more into the course as it continues along. So here's some post-survey data. Out of a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, about 94% of the people rated this course at 8+. So they rated how useful did they rate it. The rest were the 5+. But I would say 8+, 8 and over was about 94% of the people that took it last year. Lots of positive comments about examples, navigation of the course, links, communication with colleagues. All those things were kind of brought up throughout and really positive. All the outcomes had positive feedback on reaching them, so that's important, stating your outcomes and then making sure that you are reaching those outcomes. Do they feel like they came away with those outcomes or not? So here's some quotes. The first one, the ideas from the other instructors exceeded my expectations. I have learned so much, so I thought that was great. I didn't realize how much I didn't know about social media. It also gave concrete examples for implementation in the class. You hear that mentioned a lot because people thought just social media was Facebook and Twitter, and that's it. And we talk about a lot of the other things in there, and really opens their eyes up to it. It did exactly what it promised, taught me how to use social media in the classroom. But this last one was really my favorite quote I probably found in there when I was going through some of the feedback about this. And this course enlightened my narrow mind in learning more about the potential of including social media in your classroom. That's coming with someone that had that narrow mind that probably wasn't ever going to look at it, implementing social media in the classroom, but wanted to think about actually doing it.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of examples we could talk about, but we're running low on time. The one I did want to mention, if you're looking at the upper right-hand corner of the Google Plus Hangout, do any of you use those in your classes with students? Yeah, so this is Dr. Colin Archibald, or Dr. A as the students call him, and he teaches all of our advanced programming classes. And what you see is this is an extended Hangout. So the students all just set a time where they're all going to work on their homework. They log in, they start the Hangout, and they're all just working on their homework together. So there could be 20 minutes go by where nobody says anything, nobody puts something in the chat window, but if somebody runs into trouble, they say, hey, I'm getting an error here, can you guys take a look? So it's like a collaborative software development environment that's part of the learning experience for the students.
The other one was about Twitter, and he used actually YouTube to post a video about a math question or assignment, and use Twitter to get feedback questions from students. They could ask questions, they get feedback, and kind of find out what one was the hot topic that he needed to cover more. And then this is Amanda Kern, and she used it several different ways, but she was trying to figure out a way to really just open students' eyes to social media and the importance of it in their field. So going into a field of graphics technology, how many businesses are saying, we want someone to have those kind of skills when they come in. We're more likely to hire someone that has those skills than someone that doesn't. So those were kind of things she encouraged and talked about and showed some examples of. So now we're asked to do part 2. So part 2 is going to really talk about the tools. We're really building this course right now. It's going to be offered in November, kind of finalizing what's going to be all included in it. So part 2 is going to actually be a hybrid. I thought that was the best method for this because I wanted the hands-on time with people working in the course. So we decided to do that as in, let's show some tools, show how to use them, really focus on just 4 tools. Focus on 4 tools and then say, okay, now pick pick one each week to kind of showcase. So it'll be a 2-week course. Pick one each week to actually do your work in. We're not going to be working just in Blackboard or in discussion boards and things. We're going to go actually into those tools, and you're going to do them in those tools and actually participate with like a Facebook group and see how it works and goes through that flow. So you actually get the hands-on experience. That's what a lot of people are asking for now. I want to know how to use these tools. I want to know how to play with them. I want to know what I need to go into. So really, that's what we want to design. And coming away with a project is great, but we want you to play in these tools and be able to use them and be able to come away with, I know at least 2 of these, I can try to implement something in 2 of those, or I can play with all 4 of them if you want. But it's going to be required to play with at least 2. They'll learn about 4, but they have to play with 2. So kind of delve a little deeper into it each week. That's the idea so far. This is our contact information. The presentation slides should be available now at professorjosh.com. If you go on there, they should be posted. But does anyone have any questions? Any kind of questions about it? Mm-hmm.
So at the beginning of your, great presentation by the way, at the beginning of your deck, you were talking about how, or the training, how you focus on the use of social media by millennials. Mm-hmm. I was wondering if you do any discussion at all about the use of social media by older adult learners?
Not really in general. We kind of just touched on the millennial part for the engagement. I think the majority of our students fall in that range too. So we kind of try to say a lot of students fall in this range. How can you reach and engage those students? So we kind of want to make it obvious.
Plus, the audience is those other generations, so they will end up discussing that amongst themselves, even if it's not explicitly covered.
I also have cards, so if you need to grab a card, there's a back of the room or front of the room too. Mm-hmm.
What 4 tools do you think you're going to focus on?
So far, I'm probably going to do Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and then I've been toying with Pinterest, because a lot of comments or conversations going around people using Pinterest. So,
what about Instagram?
Instagram, don't really talk about it as this part of this, but it is one of the tools.
I have all my students are talking about Instagram. We use Instagram for like.
What do you teach?
I teach intro to mass comm, so I teach real classes.
Okay.
And so I don't know a whole lot about Instagram. So.
I haven't seen a lot about it in education, so I didn't want to really focus on something that they can't find good examples and things out there on. I kind of focused on that. I haven't seen a lot on it being used in education. I've seen a lot on use in journalism, business, things like that. So real world application, that's the whole point, is opening up, like, how can you use this? How can your students then, integrate this into their careers later on? It's going to be part of their career. Social media isn't going away. It's here. And a lot of people thought it was going away.
I will say it's a real safe one to delve into. Play with.
Okay.
Do you have any information about iPad apps on the website or anything?
Go to his blog. He's done entire blogs with his favorite.
If you go to my app of the week probably thing, you'll probably find a lot that tag with a lot of iPad apps and things.
I highly recommend his blog. It's one of the best takeaways of this presentation that doesn't get talked about in the presentation.
Can we find that on your?
I'll just make a comment. I think this is a great presentation and a great project that you guys have. As a faculty that have been using social media for a while, it's hard to get all their, to help faculty as well, because I have my own things to do. So this is a great idea. And a comment about the policy issue, I think is something that all of the higher education institutions are happening right now. I'm at SUNY Empire State College. We are very progressive. We have a lot of innovation, but we don't have policies related to social media. So we're actually working on that right now. So it's a common problem.
And the policy thing has to come from faculty, and that not come from administration. Administration says we have policies that cover it. We have policies that go into it. But also a lot of it's guidelines. So they like the idea of establishing some guidelines.
We're trying to come up with two. We're trying to come up with policies, so we're also working on a set of guidelines so that way people feel encouraged rather than
our council would like to be able to say, we're not going to tell you you're not allowed to friend students on Facebook, but your colleagues who are using it will tell you it's not a good idea.
Something we've been doing is for Facebook, for instance, is just having 2 accounts.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
Can you tell us why you decided to call it like a social media lesson as far as besides like a Web 2.0 learning tools?
Because we really focus. We have courses on multimedia tools or Web 2.0 tools. So this strictly kind of focuses more on social media. So we have courses that delve into those. No one's had a course on social media. No one's talked about the difference between those because they are very different. They can, have very different uses. Some kind of filter back and forth and kind of live those both worlds.
Right.
But it's a different when you start talking about communication and engagement and things like that, more than tools that plug into your course.
Are your, you said you use the software, are those
I don't have them public yet, so I would have to check with our faculty development and see if they would let me, because I developed them under with them. So, but I posted a blog a while back, and I think I linked to it in the presentation about, how I created the course and what they included in it. And you have your own thing, so.